For me, it was exciting, but I'm sure for others, I was a very boring student. One thing I regret is I was physically not very active, particularly at school level. I was probably one of the most inactive kids at school, and also a fat kid. At college level, medical school, I was physically active. I didn't play some glamorous games, but I used to play vigorously tennis-court and a few other games, but physically very active in that sense, but not really much of a sportsman. Culturally, I was extraordinarily active, particularly in terms of understanding the country and the world, what's happening. I was a very active partner in debating and quiz competitions, etc. And we won many, many awards nationally, very significant awards nationally and across the state. Educationally, at school, I never knew what was being second, nor did I ever study beyond 7 p.m. I don't think I studied regularly. In fact, at school, typically we used to have every year new set of textbooks. I used to finish my study in the first 10 days or so. For instance, math, I used to do from cover to cover all math problems in the first 10-15 days. After that, I had no work. My teachers used to give me more challenging assignments, though it was a village. If it's English, and Martin grammar. If it's math, Holland Knight, some of the more challenging things. And those also I used to quickly complete. After that, I had no work. They used to let me do whatever I wanted. So I used to read every scrap of paper I could find. Anything, any subject, anywhere, doesn't matter what it is. I never bothered about study in a formal sense. And I slept very early, slept soundly and long. But once I went to college, my interests were much more about the country and the world rather than merely textbook education. So I did enough to study to understand, in medical school for instance, and I was passionately committed to medical care and internal medicine, etc. But I gave as much time or more for the country and the world. So it was a combination of many things. It was not a traditional educational career or spectrum. I think I'm definitely a thoughts man. I must honestly tell you. There is a thinking in political communication that thoughts don't matter, it's only feelings. In fact, Daniel Kahneman, he wrote a book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. He got a Nobel Prize for that work. That whole thesis is based on this, which is sad. Not his thesis, but the reality. Because if we make decisions based on emotion rather than on what is good for us after careful thought, it's not a very happy society. But most societies respond that way. That's why there is a unique dualism in public life all over the world. In the short term, in the immediate context, you always see chaos and mess. Look at a country like the United States, the world's greatest technological giant, the world's richest country, the world's greatest military power. See the mess they create for themselves in terms of political management, in terms of gun control, in terms of health care, in terms of public transport. I mean, the answers are self-evident. In the short term, every society, India, Britain, Germany, Japan, everywhere you have a lot of dissatisfaction because you always try to appeal to the emotion in the short term and get power and not do what is really necessary, and therefore you don't fulfill your potential. But if you look at the long-term trajectory over generations, these distortions, they are corrected. So mankind as a whole, or a society as a whole, becomes more and more mature. And therefore you see progress generationally, but a lot of reason for anger and anguish in the short term. That's because in politics, in current day in particular, this emotion has become much more important. Feelings have become far more important. But in the long term, you cannot really dismiss thought. You cannot dismiss the proven examples of what is possible to accomplish, and therefore they become replicable models. So that's the clash we have to deal with. But my inclination, my temperament are always about thought. I do not like to make an emotional issue and make people work on anger. I think it's dangerous. It's very profitable politically, but it's dangerous to a society. I had a wonderful time. And again, unusual time. I was not one of those people. Normally, in our country, once you are a part of a certain group, you tend to become a trade union. So IAS club. Politicians club. So you always look at your own collective self-interest, personal goals. Then there is this atmosphere of prejudice against others. We are nice, other fellows are bad. And it's standard. Our caste is good, other castes are bad. IAS is good, IPS is bad. IAS, IPS are good, politicians are bad. We are all good, judges are bad. And this is typical Indian thing. We become immediately clannish. I was never a part of that, then or now. It's simply anathema to me. Therefore, I did my own thing. I had interaction with my colleagues to the extent it was necessary. I didn't go out of my way to be extra pally with the IAS people because they were IAS people.
It's like a caste system again.
Exactly. If they were otherwise good people, I have lifelong relationship. If there's nothing distinguishing, then I had nothing to do with them beyond that. But I made sure that in the things that are clear to me, that what is necessary for me in my domain of action, I would not brook any unnecessary interference or any obstruction. I was ruthless about it. I made the signals very clear. I didn't allow the personal rapport, or what we say in Telugu, mahmatam, to affect what I could do to the public. Public work is something that brooks no nonsense. You can be very gentle, very courteous, very polite, very nice to other human beings in private domain. But when it comes to public interest, if you allow these personal considerations to dominate public good, you become a nuisance. I never allowed that to happen. Therefore, everybody, no matter how big they were in government, they knew they could not cross my path when it came to public interest. So I created my own small little island and my own ecology, so that wherever I was, I delivered. That's why people see, even 30 years or 25 years after I left those positions, that I've delivered something that's remembered for a generation or two. Even today, hundreds of thousands of families remember what happened then because it's lasting. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because I was determined to make that happen. That was the purpose of my life, not merely be another officer and get a salary. The good news is that Indian society, relative to its poverty, is willing to spend more money out of pocket on education than almost any other society in the world. It's amazing. The good news is our kids are incredibly hardworking. The good news is that civilizationally we have this respect for learning, value for learning. So there are some very positive features. Therefore, to set things right, we must build on these strengths. The bad news is our delivery is terrible. The supply is horrible. The bad news is we don't understand what is success. We all relish success. All kids, all of you, when you went through MSET or something else, your lives were made miserable. Why? In the quest for success. Even your teachers' lives were made miserable. Take your Chaitanyas and Narayanas, even the teachers, even they have such difficult lives. Why? Success. The problem is we have not understood how to define success. So, at one level, it's easy to fix. Because the basics are in place, you only have to design some mechanisms to deliver well. Therefore, I would say do three things. One, completely reshape the evaluation system. I'm not saying scrap examinations, that's nonsensical. You must measure outcomes. But our outcomes are measured in a very stupid way. If examinations measure only mugging up, if to get an engineering degree, all you have to do is mug up the answers to 3 years preceding question papers, then you only get some third-rate outcome. Why is it a surprise? Supposing the examination actually is measuring the ability to comprehend and to innovate and to apply your knowledge to problem solving, I am absolutely certain the same system will all be geared towards that, because we all want success. That is the common denominator. But our definition of success is very bad. MSET definition means you get a higher rank. Rank means mug up a little more, not really apply your knowledge. Similarly, 10th class, similarly engineering. So the basic impulse is, I must get success. We redefine success, that is the first thing, by better evaluation system, easier, low-hanging fruit. Second, in the universities in particular, your teacher selection is atrocious. It's disgraceful. Therefore, over a period of time, it has lost the charm, and only the people, often, There are some outstanding exceptions, but generally, only people who could not find better jobs elsewhere, they are now landing up here. That's a very dangerous situation. You must make teaching glamorous, sexy, attractive, respected, and you must choose the finest. And one easy way of choosing is, as a rule, don't choose anybody from your alma mater or from your university. Somebody from your university, from your college must never become teacher there, because then it becomes incestuous. There is no willingness to open and explore. University education also has become like a caste system. It's ridiculous. School is different. School, basic tools you are giving. But university, you are trying to open the mind. That's why in all the great universities of the world, they never allow a student of that university to become a teacher in that university, no matter how excellent that fellow was. In exceptionally rare cases, if 10, 15, 20 years later, if that chap is number one in the world in that field, there is nobody comparable, then he is brought back. Otherwise, a Harvard alumnus never becomes a Harvard teacher. A Stanford alumnus never becomes a Stanford teacher. It's a simple rule of thumb. This is only one example, but many ways of improving the quality of teacher recruitment, because the inspiration of the teacher, the quality of the teacher, and the values the teacher brings ultimately is what education is about. Otherwise, you don't require college or university. If it's only the content of knowledge, you have textbooks, you have open source software now. MIT education is available to you. Why do you have to go to a college? If it's all gyan, if it's merely the subject, then it's available luckily today at zero cost. You can download. It's the teacher and the qualities that person brings, the innovation, the intelligence, the spark, the wit, the dynamism, the inspiration that the person brings. That is what distinguishes. That is now, in most cases, a dead art. The third is, you must have interface with society. We, the society, that includes your parents, that includes government, that includes others, invest so much of energy and money in education because education brings value to society in turn. If that education is divorced from society's problems, if a political science fellow becomes an MA or MPhil political science without knowing what elections are about or voter registration is about or how to improve the governance of the country or how to reduce corruption in a very practical and meaningful way or how to improve political culture of the country, but he gives you bhashans and political science because he mugged up. Why should you go through that MSc education, MA political science? If a mechanical engineer does not know how to open the hood of a car and set right the engine, and a mechanical engineer, when the car or scooter breaks down, takes it to an illiterate mechanic, then why that education? What is the meaning of that education? So we must make interaction with society and addressing the real problems of society an integral part of education and evaluation. If these three things are done, at the very least, then other things will follow. So there are many easily correctable things. At school education level, slightly different, but again similar things. Their evaluation is absolutely vital. We messed up. Public-private partnership, but public funding so that the poor people don't have to spend out of pocket for private education, treating them both equally. And consolidation of existing schools. We have too many government schools with too little children, 10 children, 15 children schools, there are thousands, tens of thousands, it's ridiculous. So, but basic principles are the same. This is easily to be set right, but we have arguably one of the worst educational enterprises in the world. It's a matter of abundant shame to us as Indians. We were ranked 73rd out of 74 nations in PISA survey, global survey in school education. Our universities stink, they're useless, most of them. Our degrees mean nothing in 95% of the cases. We are hoodwinking ourselves. We have to change that. Your approach should not be whether I can enter and contest elections and win. That's inconsequential. Your approach should be that politics is a calling. It is about citizenship. It's about collective good. Each of us is our personal goals. I want a better life, better incomes. I want to fulfill my dreams. That's what life is about. But in order to do that well, you require also a community of infrastructure. Public order, justice, rule of law, basic infrastructure, your traffic maintenance, education, healthcare, water supply, electricity. All this is in the public domain. No individual can do it. Even Tata cannot do it. And therefore, government is important. Therefore, politics is important. We are starting with politics as a starting point. Politics per se is inconsequential. Why is it important to you and me? I don't care a damn. It's important because our education is a mess, our healthcare is a mess, our power sector is a mess, our roads are a mess, our traffic is a mess, and unless politics is improved, they can't be improved, and vice versa. So what is the starting point? If that is the case, then it's a mission. And you must know how to combine individual growth with public good. One cannot be at the cost of others. Therefore, politics can never be seen as a career. And politics can never be seen as merely a political party activity and elections. It is about citizenship, it's about public participation in governance. And there are various stages and various methods. That depends on opportunity, your own inclination, and the context. So there are 1,000 ways of doing it. Just because you become an MLA but do nothing, in what way are you any different from a chap who has made a huge improvement in school education in a school possible? So we are forgetting what these are about. Politics is merely a means. The end is all important. For the end, there are many means. Politics is one of the important means you cannot ignore, as a voter at the very least. You don't necessarily have to be a politician and contest elections. I don't regard myself as a politician at all. I can regard myself as a nation builder, as a citizen who is deeply concerned about improvement of the country, and every single avenue in the country I try and utilize. Most of the work I do, in fact 99.9% of the work I do, has nothing to do with political parties. So I don't understand what is politics beyond human life. That India is hopelessly badly governed, and our politics shapes our society in many ways. Our governance shapes our society in many ways, and governance is in shambles. And therefore, if you want to improve education or healthcare or reduce poverty or give corruption-free services or improve efficacy or create jobs or improve investment, you have to set right the public systems. And the best and the brightest must pay attention to that. I can't be dedicated to only my life and my economics. I must do something for myself. But that can't be my only goal. That's what drove me to IAS. That's what drove me out of the IAS, the same goal. It's not enough that I deliver. I delivered better than most people in the country. I was regarded as one of the most successful civil servants in the history of this country. So personally, my life was made. Just as my life was made as a doctor. But if that's all I wanted, then how am I different? And the purpose is to really transform the way Indians take care of public systems and the goods are delivered, goods and services. Then it's not enough that I delivered exceptionally well when I had an opportunity. You have to change the systems, and IAS gave you enormous opportunity to understand. I made it my business to understand every bit about my country, its systems, its institutions, its society, its economy, its strengths, its weaknesses, and the solutions. Probably no other Indian paid so much attention to these as I did. I packed several lifetimes of work into that. For 40 years now, more than 40 years of my life, probably for 41 years now, well before I joined IAS, I made India my mission. I dreamt India, I breathed India, I drank India, I slept India, I ate India. This country, its future, the people, their problems, how to solve them. And I learnt a lot. So once I know what are the answers, how to set it right, then I can say, look, I am happy because I am a good doctor, I can make lots of money. I am a great IAS officer, I am reputed, my life is made. Or, damn it, this country must be changed. It doesn't matter how it is changed, whatever it takes to change it. And administration is not enough, because then there are constraints. I can only work as a public manager. I cannot be a man who will reform the system itself. That requires public communication, that requires strategic alliances, that requires a fight to change it. That's a different struggle altogether. That's all. So I did the same thing when I was IAS, except that I got a monthly, some small paltry paycheck. There's no difference. I do the same thing now. I don't get a paycheck, that's all. Otherwise the work is the same. So these are all, I don't understand why people regard these as changes. There's no change at all. There's only one country. There are some things to be done, whether in IAS or outside IAS, a political party, outside political, how does it matter? You have to do the same things. I don't think it's important. I don't think individuals are important. If people benefit from what I am doing and have done, if people benefit from my experience and therefore what I am trying to communicate and what I am trying to do or what I have done, if they make their lives better, that is to me the greatest contribution, the greatest recognition. If they put my picture everywhere and my statue everywhere, but the country is an awful mess, versus They don't really know that a man like Jayaprakash Narayan existed, but they actually benefited. They've learned the value of the work done, and they've utilized it to make their lives better, and therefore the nation is much better and millions of lives are transformed. To me, that is the greatest tribute. God makes great things happen through people who do not care who get the credit. I don't care a damn who gets the credit. I care deeply whether this country, our society, will fulfill her potential or not. Do you remember the story of the little boy on the shoulders of his father? When the king was parading nakedly, thinking that he was wearing those divine clothes or whatever. The little boy said, but the king is naked. Everybody else thought maybe the king has clothes and we're not able to see because we're fools. Or they were scared. The little boy was required to shout. Aam Aadmi Party is that a little boy. But supposing the little boy has met the king immediately because he shouted, then what would happen is what's happening with Aam Aadmi Party. You require people to shout. But it doesn't mean just because you shouted, you acquire the ability to transform things. These are two different things. There are two fundamental flaws in their approach. The first is a nihilism. Destroy everything because everything bad. You're bad, you're bad, you're bad. Congress is bad, BJP is bad, somebody is bad. You're all destroyed. I'm all for you. I'm good for you. I'm good for you. You're bad, you're bad. It is nonsensical. It is self-defeating. If things are bad, there is an objective reason why many people have to behave in that manner. Therefore, you must be thoughtful and you must think of how do you reinstitutionalize, how do you change the incentives to reshape the way things are done. Like telephones became accessible and free from corruption not because we shouted from rooftops and said telephones are bad, telephones are bad, telephones are bad, telecom fellows are corrupt. Right? Here they came up with the technology and with competition. Somewhere else is something else. It's not the same answer, but there has to be a rational, thoughtful answer. And you must mobilize the people around it. That's true politics. Instead, they're bad, I'm good, they're bad, I'm good. You have become a part of the problem. The second is, accept that you don't take bribes at this point of time because after all we are not yet tested. Only when we have real power can we be tested. Until that time, where is the opportunity to take a bribe anyway? But let's assume that there are many honest people right now. We are all over in government and bureaucracy, in politics. You are also one of those honest guys, I admit. Let's assume, even if it's not proven yet. But that's not enough. If you tell people, I'll give you free water, free power, but I don't improve the systems, I don't. What are you saying? Basically, public money is to buy votes, to put me in power. Instead of Chandrababu Naidu, put me in power. He also says free power, free rice, free something. I will also say free something, something. But instead of him, put me there. In what way are you going to be any different to the country? Public power, public money is about using public resources for the future of the country, for the long-term good, for eradicating poverty, not perpetuating poverty and giving short-term freebies. Whereas they were as crass and as short-term as many other political parties. Actually, some political parties and leaders, they are far more responsible than this. These are two serious problems. So the child must grow up. The child is necessary. The child must shout, but the child must grow up. Otherwise, the child himself is a problem. See, it's not an individual. Individuals matter. Leaders matter. There's no question about it. But over centuries, what has happened by leaders, not only in politics, our problem is we look at one leader, we forget the culture around the leader in government. Two, we forget that leadership is required in all spheres of life, in civil society, in business, in education, in healthcare, in a whole lot of spheres. There is no one leader. We forget that. Third, we forget that over generations, over centuries, some things have been built in some societies. If Indian democracy is in a bit of a mess today, it's not because Indians are terrible compared to Britishers and Americans. It means that America went through it much earlier, we are going through it today. George Washington, one of the great founding fathers of America, he was elected in 1770s to a state assembly position in the state of Virginia, to the House of Burgess, by distributing liquor. In the same election, James Madison, who was the architect of the American Constitution and was later president, He said, like Lok Satta, I will not distribute liquor, I will not do all the dirty things, and he lost the election roundly.
Even though he formed it.
So it took time for them to change it. They changed it. We did not have the chance because our revolution as a democracy is much later. There are some things we did well, some things we did badly. Similarly, in Gujarat, because of centuries and millennia of tradition of trade with the West, with Europe as well as Arab countries, even 2000 years ago, 3000 years ago, 1000 years ago, Gujarat was a trading post. Once you have international commerce, it is a part of your culture, your ethos, your society, you try and maximize the gains. Better production, lower cost, more marketability, how to interact with people, how to have these transactions, how to make things better, how to make things more efficient. That becomes part of your ethos. Even Chimnabhai Patel's Gujarat was actually much more proactive. He was thoroughly corrupt. Modi, because he was personally non-corrupt and he was consistent, and he was a rare politician who was saying, look, I must do whatever it takes for the country and the state, even if I am unpopular in the short term. Whereas Chimnabhai said, I must do whatever it takes to make money and to win power. Then I will do whatever it takes for Gujarat also. Whereas Modi put this as number one priority. Therefore, he did unpopular things boldly, took a chance. Like the electricity sector, he transformed it, he improved it dramatically. The only state where it's improved without freebies. It's an unpopular way of doing it. That means he was willing to put the good of the state above his own political power. He risked it and the risk was rewarded, but risk could also have failed. Like prime ministership, for instance, he could have easily tried to divide India, caste, region, religion, etc. He could have easily offered freebies like other parties were offering. He did neither. Remember? It's a risky thing. The risk paid off for the time being, but it has not yet paid off. He must now deliver to the country without the freebies. Otherwise, he'll be reviled after 5 years, I can guarantee you. Probably 3 people, maybe 4 people stand out. Dadabhai Naoroji, I have enormous respect, extraordinary liberal. He was actually the founder of our national movement in many ways. Gopal Krishna Gokhale, a great liberal who thought through issues with great clarity and a man who knew how to build a consensus. Sardar Patel, the man who really unified India, united India, a very disparate India with almost no violence, no bloodshed, with remarkable peace, and really created India as we understand today. And Ambedkar, the man who understood the importance of institutions, the value of institutions. It's not enough to talk of morality, but it's important to build institutions to protect morality. He understood the purpose of a government much better than most Indians. So many people obviously played a role, but these 4 certainly, to me, they stand out. And nobody can ignore Mahatma Gandhi and his contribution. He was exceptional, it goes without saying. But these 4 people, I don't think people have understood adequately what they have done. I would say you are a very privileged generation. You don't realize how privileged you are. It's a fantastic time to be alive. Because you have 2 things which no generation before you had. Even globally, no generation before you had these opportunities. But in India, absolutely there is no comparison. Because for the first time in history, you have the opportunity to fulfill your potential, the society's potential, because you have technology which is unprecedented. Even 20 years ago, when I founded Lok Satta movement, there was nothing like ubiquitous internet or Wikipedia or something else. 30 years ago, it was unheard of. I didn't even know. 10 years ago, I didn't know what the Facebook is. Even today, I don't understand much of it, but at least I hear about it. The world is changing dramatically. Therefore, even ordinary mortals with low resources are able to access things which only kings and prime ministers would access earlier. This is something unbelievable. Even simple things like drinking water, today you can access it at low cost. Quality water technologies are now available. In many fields, it's proliferating. 2, resources. When I built 2 lakh acres of irrigation in one district of India in 2.5 years, unprecedented in India's history, never before, never after done. I needed 42 crores. Of that, 20 crores are raised from banks on behalf of the farmers, that means private money which farmers repaid. So I required only the balance 22 crores from the government. But to transform the lives of 1 lakh families forever, I had to go through hell to find that kind of money. With my ability, my credibility, my innovation, it was an excruciatingly difficult task. I did it finally, I succeeded. But today, every collector would have 200 crores under one program every year. That's the kind of resource base. It's not enough. You need much more, but relative to what it was, there's a huge resource base available. These are two great gifts. This is a fantastic time. Therefore, if you leverage them well, you can make a phenomenal difference. Not in a generation, but in about 5 to 10 years' time. This is a make or break moment in our history. Because as I keep saying recently all over the country, history gave us a belated opportunity. We missed the Industrial Revolution. We missed the post-colonial revolution because we messed up our politics and our economics because of the stupid notions of socialist economy, government control, license raj and all those things. We messed up our education and healthcare. We undermined our political institutions and they became from bad to worse. But now, you believe in fate, you believe in providence, you believe in history, whatever, gave us some unique opportunity. And that is, China, which has become lately a global giant, is now vacating space because A, they don't have enough workers in manufacturing. They are losing every year 3 to 4 million working age people. Therefore, what do you do when you don't have people? You give up the low end work. The high end you always retain. This is human nature. So out of compulsion, manufacturing at the low end they are giving up. They are going to give up a lot more in the next 10-20 years. Second, because of prosperity, their wage rate has gone up dramatically. Their wage rate compared to United States was 2% 25 years ago. It is now 25%. It's dramatically grown. And therefore, they are not cost effective now. For both these reasons, they are going to give it up. India is the only large country that can grab most of it. But if we set our things right, our skills, our non-corrupt environment, power sector, at least the minimum conditions required for doing business quickly and creating jobs. If we do that, first take the low-end manufacturing, some 30-40% of Chinese manufacturing quickly, create millions of jobs. From there you can go to high-end data. India can be transformed. If we don't do it, many small countries will take over a bit of each. Vietnam is already doing that. Vietnam is nothing compared to us, but Vietnam is doing better than India, which is a shame to all of us. So many countries, Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America. And once you miss this opportunity, it will not come again. For the next century, India is finished. So here is an opportunity. Here is this window which is narrow. It is a make or break moment. We can change the world, the country. But now, not tomorrow, not 20 years later. Now. Grab it.